got into DC Comics. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace, and as you can see, I got into DC Comics. I just want to give a huge shout out to my library because I did not buy all of these.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. That's right.
Please check out your local libraries and support your libraries, please. I still have more coming. So yeah, as you can see, it all started with the new Superman movie directed by James Gunn. I wasn't going to see it, I swear. Although I don't talk about it often, I had a exhaustion with the Marvel superhero movies, especially after Endgame. The few superhero movies that I did enjoy were, if you can see from my backlog, the Venom movies. Although they still didn't quite hit the mark towards the end like I'd hoped, I still really enjoyed them. And I made a whole video talking about how I could have improved Venom 3, but the Sony Spider-Verse movies without Spider-Man are done now apparently, and I don't know when Spider-Verse 3, this animated movie with Miles Morales, is coming out, but we'll just see where Marvel goes from here. I also really enjoyed Thunderbolts. I wasn't gonna see that, but the cast won me over and I highly enjoyed that movie. Although I didn't get me into reading comics, I felt that there was a sense of hope for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, and I wasn't gonna go see Superman either because I was like, okay, James Gunn is gonna try to fix up whatever was left after the Flash movie with Ezra Miller. Sasha Calle I thought looked great as Supergirl, but I didn't see it. I just thought she looked great, and there was a whole bunch of nonsense I heard going on in front of the camera, behind the camera, all sorts of stuff. So I'm like, okay, James Gunn is gonna try his best to pick up the pieces and we'll see where it goes from here. I wasn't gonna see the Superman movie. Then the trailer dropped, and then I saw the dog, Crypto, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, maybe, I guess. I guess I'll watch it maybe. So when I went to go see it in theaters, I had an amazing time and I absolutely adored this movie, and this led me down a rabbit hole. When I finished Superman, I decided, okay, you know what? I'll get back into it a little bit, see what's up. I also really enjoyed the Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson movie, directed by Matt Reeves. I adored that movie, but I didn't really see it so much as a superhero movie, more so like a cinematic experience. It's 3 hours long, excellent use of shadows and lighting, as well as scene composition. So I'm like, okay, I'll rewatch that. Again, thank you to my local library for giving me, I did like the whole run. I took out the Batman DVD, I took out the Nolan DVDs. I thought about taking out the Schumacher DVDs, but then I also took out the Harley Quinn DVD. I finally took out The Crow too. The Crow was in the same section, so I'm like, finally I get to watch Brandon Lee's The Crow, not the other Crow. We don't talk about that Crow. And then I caved. I did like a whole deep dive, and I got my friend's HBO Max password again. I did the whole shebang. I'm like, oh no, this is happening. Because in addition to that, the thing is, a while back, I was also into the Wayne Family Adventures webtoon. I just so happened upon it a couple years ago, and I'm like, this is cute. This is a lot of fun. A lot of new characters that I never heard of because I was always the movie girly. I'm like, okay, Batman and Robin. I like vaguely knew about other characters in the periphery. My friend, who actually, of course, is the one with the Max password, is the one who loves Batman. His cat is named Batman. I love that cat. I miss that cat so much, but he's moved away now. I think of him every day. So he's the one who's super into Batman, and I knew a bunch of stuff from the periphery. So I read Wayne Family Adventures a while ago, and then I stopped for a while, just in general with webtoons, because it was a whole thing with my email. And so I picked that one back up again, refreshed myself on all the characters, went on a bunch of YouTube deep dives on like the chronology of Batman, the chronology of Superman, all of the DC reboots that I still can't quite keep together, but I'm kind of trying to parse. And so that led me to reading the Super Sons, which is, if you don't know, Superman's son, John Kent, and Batman's biological son named Damian Wayne, who's also the fifth Robin. Dick Grayson is the first Robin. He's also the one who was the star of the 2003 Teen Titans Cartoon Network show. That was one I grew up with. So I knew Dick Grayson, and then I knew vaguely in the periphery Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Stephanie Brown. I thought Damian was the fourth Robin. No, Stephanie Brown deserves some love too. She was a Robin for a hot minute. And so finally Damian went. So I came upon these guys and I'm like, I'm in love with them. They're so cute. They have, of course, as you can imagine, this is so heavy. They, of course, as you can imagine, being the sons of Superman and Batman, they have a completely opposing sides dynamic, but they play off absolutely well against each other and go on crazy adventures since they are like 10 and 13 years old. And I thought, this is great. I like kind of understand what's going on, and I don't need to understand completely what's going on because I'm just on an adventure. Like, they're up in space now. Okay, great. I'm having fun because it was so fun to follow them, watching them grow and learn to trust each other, and like they just play off each other so well, and they just have each other's backs. So then color me surprised when I found out that they that they shipped John away. They shipped John away onto a spaceship with his presumably dead Kryptonian grandfather, where apparently some shit went down. An evil version of Superman kidnapped him and like threw him into a red sun volcano for like 6 years, and then he came back and now he's Superman. And I'm like, is this what it feels like to be a comics fan? Holy moly. I can't handle this emotional whiplash. And I'm years late. So I'm catching up on all of this now. So yeah, as you can see, this is a whole thing here. Yeah, I guess it's not as simple to be a comics fan, especially with DC and Marvel comics fan. Because of course, after the Venom movies came out, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go on a Venom run and see what's going on. So I went to my local comic book store. Anyway, please support your local comic book stores. And I'm like, okay, so like I've heard about this. What can I do to get into some Venom comics? They gave me a whole bunch of recommendations, and then I settled on this one, The Amazing Spider-Man Maximum Carnage. And I read the whole thing and I'm like, oh god, this is kind of nuts, because of course it's Carnage breaking out of it's like basically what is used in the plot of Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage. And I'm like, okay, I can get into this. There's Carnage, there's Creedy, there's the girlfriend named Shriek, and it's Spider-Man and his relationship troubles with Mary Jane, and he is out to fight Carnage, and he recruits Venom to help him. But then also there's Cloak and Dagger, they're here, and then there's some other characters who are here that I forgot, and then all of a sudden Captain America shows up. I'm like, oh, okay, all of a sudden Captain America shows up, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm just here for the ride. And I enjoyed this thoroughly. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially the issues collected in this volume came out in 1993, so I enjoyed the art style as well. But I was like, okay, I'm a little bit confused and kind of lost. But yeah, this was fun. I don't know if I can really get into it. But then I'm on this whole rabbit hole here now because I thoroughly became really attached to Damian Wayne in particular. So yeah, of course, like the feisty youngest son is my favorite character, of course. Long story short, even if you don't if you know anything about Batman lore, is that basically, long story short, like Batman had a thing with this assassin lady named Talia al Ghul, who's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. There's like a whole thing about it. So she's an assassin raised by her like nearly immortal assassin father. What's crazy about Talia al Ghul, her characterization is all over the place. I think in the original run in like the 80s or something, please correct me if I'm wrong about all this knowledge because I'm coming at this from all sorts of angles. In the original run, she and Bruce were actually married for a hot minute, and she wasn't able to conceive to term, unfortunately. But when, I think it was Grant Morrison who brought Damian Wayne back, he made Talia put a drug in Batman's drink, and that's how Damian was conceived, which was whoops. And Talia became this like nasty villain, which was crazy to read about in the Super Sons comics. But I was still attached to him, partially because of the characterization in the Wayne Family Adventures comic, but also just in general, his story I thought was really fascinating. Raised by assassins, taught to kill from a very young age, practically since birth, and yet for some reason or another, he is sent to live in Gotham with his father, who didn't know he existed for 10 years, and he is like the angry kitten who's like, pay attention to me, I need to prove myself that I can be the next Batman. But along the way, he learns to live with his family, and in the main continuity, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going down. I think he's died at least twice. And he's brought back to life thanks to something or another, infused with something or another, and such and such and that and that. I guess I'm mostly just attached to him because of his backstory, and I think there's some interesting dynamics, particularly with him and Dick Grayson, who is now the new Nightwing. And I think he's been Robin for quite a hot while now. I'm interested to see where the character goes from here, but I'm not really sure. I mean, I think I know how comics work because I've been trying to research this. I'm trying to catch up with all this, but it's so confusing. It's not even just a matter of like how many reboots have they done? Like 8 reboots that they've been doing, only in particularly DC. Like there's of course like the famous first one, Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s, and then there's like the other Crisis and the Dark Crisis, and then the Flashpoint, and then the New 52. And then I don't really know why it's called the New 52, because there was like a 5G thing, and I don't know what 5G is about. But then they have Rebirth, and then they have Dawn of DC. But then I'm like, is Dawn of DC a part of Rebirth, or is Rebirth done now and now it's Dawn of DC? I don't know. So someone in the comments can please explain to me that. That'd be great. In general, I think to me it's just like picking a character and sticking with them for as long as you can. But even still, like the order is kind of crazy, because okay, so there's the Williamson run, the Robin Williamson run, and then there's Batman and Robin, which is the Grant Morrison run. But then I don't think this is the first meeting of Robin, Damian Wayne as Robin, because I think that's in a Batman run. Because this is I think this is the one where Bruce Wayne is like lost in the time stream or whatever. So this is actually Dick Grayson Batman, and this is Damian Wayne Robin. So I'm trying to figure this out. And then I think Bruce Wayne comes back. I think that's this, and this is Batman versus Robin. And then side note, I tried to look up LGBT superheroes, so I found Midnighter, and then Midnighter and Apollo. But I think this volume of Midnighter and Apollo is in the Midnighter complete collection. And then I found out that those two guys were in this thing called The Authority. But then if you really want to read about The Authority, you can't start with The Authority. You have to start with something called Stormwatch. And then there's another Williamson Batman and Robin, father and son. But then there's this volume 1 that came out, and then there's a second volume 1 that came out like the year after this, and this is Dawn of DC. Yeah, I just figured I'd pick up Watchmen while I was on the way. Because I heard in the latest chronology that Dr. Manhattan decides to mess with the timeline. And I think Dr. Manhattan messing with the timeline is what led to the survival of Jor-El, which is Kal-El, Clark Kent's father from Krypton. But then for some reason, Jor-El is teaming up with Thomas Wayne, who's Batman's father, but he's from another timeline where Bruce Wayne died instead of Thomas Wayne, and then Thomas Wayne became Batman, and then Thomas Wayne and Jor-El come to whatever the main timeline is, and then Thomas Wayne was a cool guy for a while and was like, son from another timeline, I'm glad you're alive, and maybe you should think about like learning to be happy without Batman. And then Batman is like, okay, this is really great, thank you so much, father. Like he gets really emotional. It's a really touching panel. And then he's like, okay, maybe I should like take the steps to finally let Batman go and be happy. But then turns out Bane was planning things from the back the whole time, and just before Batman and Catwoman get married, of course, Selena, Catwoman, who was being manipulated by Bane the whole time, like leaves him on the altar, and then Batman can't be happy, and then he's continuing to be Batman. And then Thomas Wayne, that's when Thomas Wayne and Jor-El came in. And Jor-El is, I think he's mentally unstable. But then Thomas Wayne decides to not be nice anymore and actually decides to fight Batman so he can stop being Batman. And then for some reason, Jor-El reveals himself to Kal-El, Clark Kent, and Lois Lane. And then he's like, oh my God, I have a grandson. Hey, grandson, you want to come with me on some space adventures so you can learn about Kryptonian stuff? And 10-year-old John, or 11-year-old, I don't remember, 10 or 11-year-old John is like, hooray. And then his parents let him go. And then at some point, Ultraman, who is the evil version of Superman from another timeline, is the one that kidnaps John and like tortures him in a volcano for 6 years. And then somehow he gets out. That's where you find that out in the Superman run. But then at some point, Superman is off to this planet called War World, where he's a gladiator for a while. And then so John Kent becomes Superman, and he's bisexual now. And I remember those headlines when everyone was like, wow, the son of Superman is bisexual now, and he has a boyfriend named Jay. And I thought, wow, okay, well, you're just saying that. Is it a good story? And I tried to read it, and I don't think so. Because I was like, look, I'm probably not going to understand what's going on, but I'm going to try and understand the story for what it is. This is all I do. All I try and do is understand, and I can't understand, okay? Because I really tried to, because I'm coming off of this from Super Sons, right? And I don't understand the order because because John's story is also in Superman issues. And I'm like, look, I can't wait for my library to get all the Superman issues. I care about John Kent and I want to read John Kent titles. So I'm coming off of this from Super Sons with the knowledge that he was imprisoned in a volcano for 6 years and tortured by a guy who looks exactly like his dad, right? And so I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, where is the trauma processing? Where's the therapy? So I tried to read this and I'm like, okay, you're just becoming Clark Kent Jr. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know who you are other than Clark Kent Jr. And I feel really bad because he's not really his own person because he's just Superman again. And I really want to say, wow, his bisexual representation is so groundbreaking for comics. It's not. It's really not, because basically in this Superman Son of Kal-El run is he all of a sudden he really cares about climate change. He saves a boat of refugees from this island called Gamorra. First off, why did you choose Gamorra? Out of all the names, you gotta have chosen Gamorra, okay? But whatever. So oh wait, I'm going too fast. So basically his dad is like, son, I gotta do something. Can you watch Earth for me while I'm away doing gladiator stuff? And John is like, okay, I'll do you proud, Dad. I'm gonna become Superman. So what ends up happening is that John gets really sad about climate change. And he wants to do more for the world, like more than his dad did, so he can save the world from climate change. And despite saving a guy on fire, he has no lingering trauma symptoms at all from being trapped in a volcano for 6 years. Anyway, metahumans are like showing up in random places, confused and lost and having no memory. Damian Wayne, briefly because he's off doing his own thing, here's this podcast or news source called The Truth. And I'm like, oh my God. So Damian Wayne somehow connects him with this podcast called The Truth. And this is where Jay Nakamura comes in because he's a post-human, a human who's experimented on and developed powers, and he's able to phase through anything like Kitty Pryde from X-Men. And even though John wants to stop climate change, Jay tells him of his home country of Gamorra, which is this island nation, and he is the son of the former president, but the new president, Henry Bendix, who's really just Lex Luthor in purple, wants to has basically taken over the country and everyone's trapped there. But John saves a boat of refugees, and for some reason the refugees are considered illegal. And I'm like, what do you mean they're considered illegal? Because aren't we still in America and there's political asylum seekers? And who's the president now? Because in the next volume after this one, Lex Luthor had just gotten out of prison, of course, blackmailed a bunch of people to restore his fortune again. And in that second volume, it's the same plot as Superman movie, in which now it's Lex Luthor and this other bald guy named Henry Bendix who are creating the problem in which they can blame on Superman as a threat to the country again. And I'm like, okay, look, we have to write people smarter than this. I'm sorry. Because like how many I don't know what continuity we're in, man. All the continuity events have jumbled up together in my brain. But it's like, dude, like, you know, like the collective people need to be like smarter than this. Cuz I'm like, well, didn't this happen before where, like, turns out Superman didn't actually commit a crime and then you guys all made it a big deal so that you can launch your own superpowered army, and then the superpowered army turns out aren't very nice? And this is just me complaining. I'm just unscripted. I'm just unscripted here because I don't know. Anyway, I'm about a couple of years too late, but I've been missing Super Sons ever since. There is the Super Sons animated movie that came out, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. That one was a really fun time because honestly, I thought it was like a really good family-friendly movie. Well, there's some swearing in it, but I think it was still really fun because it's the theme of fatherhood is the one that's running throughout the movie. It doesn't follow the comics exactly, of course, because there's all sorts of crossover stuff going on. But in the movie, there's like the theme of fatherhood running throughout, where it shows once more the destruction of Krypton, and Jor-El, a nice version this time, is like talking to baby Kal-El and is like, I hope one day you'll have a child too, yada yada yada. And then flash forward now, John Kent, the son of Clark Kent, is trying to connect with his father and trying to understand, because he doesn't know that Clark Kent, his father, is Superman yet. And he's trying to understand him, and then Clark is also having trouble understanding it. And it's not just about like Superman having a son, it's also about Superman being a father. Like, we've had Batman being a father to at least a bajillion other children, but it's interesting to see Superman try to be a father. Now, Connor, and I haven't forgotten about Connor Kent. I'm about 30 years too late, but I haven't forgotten about Connor Kent. Connor Kent is an interesting point, and I hope they bring him into the next Superman movie somehow, but we'll see. Because everybody's making jokes about how like Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is the one who's gonna baby trap Superman. Okay, but real quick, yes, Connor Kent is the clone of Superman mixed with Lex Luthor DNA. I haven't forgotten about him, but specifically John Kent is the one that interests me more because he was a child. He was the one who he was the chosen one. He was the one who was supposed to grow up, and we go on all these adventures with him. And then they just decided to skip 6 years of his life because apparently the guy, Brian Bendis, didn't like it. There was like a tweet where he was like, yeah, I don't want to write kids. Why did they... Why are you here if you don't want to write kids? I don't know. But yeah, all this nonsense, honestly, is what kept me from comics for the longest time. I loved the Teen Titans cartoon when it came out. I watched the Justice League animated series when it came out when I was little. But then I tried to parse all this, and I'm like, I am like, every puzzle is so tiny, and I'm trying to gather all of them. But also, it's a lot of money and time to like get all this. And of course, there's like the DC Infinite digital archive. Again, it's like you can follow a series for as long as you can until abruptly it gets canceled. Abruptly, there's like something else going on. Abruptly, it gets rebooted, and then what? You're just kind of left holding the bag, and then what? But even still, I have been enjoying most-ish of what I've been reading of some DC comics. Like, again, other than Super Sons, I've been enjoying the animated movies. I asked Reddit what I could do as a beginner, and for DC particularly, they have this new series called the Compact Collection, in which they've collected into smaller dimensions the best of their stories. So if you ever heard of Batman Hush, Deceased, which is an Elseworld story, and then I was like, what's an Elseworld story? So of course those are like the stories that are self-contained and don't fit into the main continuity. So for example, there's Deceased, which is what if zombies, and then at the library I was like, oh, let me just walk around randomly and see what they have, and I picked up DC versus Vampires, but what I picked up wasn't actually DC versus Vampires 1. I picked up DC versus Vampires World War V 1, and then I was like, okay, this is 1, so it must be the beginning. No, because I think there's at least 3 or 4 volumes of DC versus Vampires, and then it becomes DC versus Vampires World War V Volume 1, and then I'm like, this is really confusing because, okay, I've thought about this a lot because I was wondering how it could change, maybe to help people understand it more. I'm like, do you think like, oh, they could do a Japanese manga magazine type of thing in which they just collect all the issues into one magazine so you can just pick it up? But that doesn't quite work because, well, first off, they've kind of started phasing out, well, Shonen Jump has phased out their manga magazine for a while and now exclusively digital. Also, the manga magazines are printed on like newspaper type paper, so they're meant to be recycled afterwards, whereas with issues, there's a lot of variant covers and they're meant to appeal to collectors. I think the DC Compact series is really great to start. I wish it were as easy as like start with one and follow it the rest of the whole way. That's why like One Piece is especially coming up in sales in the American comics market. And even with, let's say, One Piece, for example, like on the spines and on the covers, you can see like the different names of the arcs, but it's not, what's the name of an arc? I don't know, Dolphin Island? Or East Blue, regardless of the name of the arc, because I getting into One Piece is a whole other thing entirely. It's even with like the names of the different arcs on the side, it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 onward. It's not East Blue 1, Dolphin Island 1. I don't know if those are names of arcs. And granted, look, differently with DC Comics, and Marvel Comics as well. Writers change, editors change, artists change. They're also dealing with what's been handed down to them from not just previous years, but also previous decades. Like, we are coming up on, I think Superman is about to go into the public domain, but it's a Mickey situation. It's the 1930s rendition of Superman that's going into the public domain. Not necessarily you can use Superman. You have to use a certain version of Superman. You don't have to. What am I saying? There's only certain versions of Superman that are going into public domain as the 95 years creep up. That's why you can use Steamboat Willie Mickey, but then even then the copyright gets tricky. And there's also the matter of trademark as well. So it's not as if you can use like Superman in your next like Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey horror movie remix. It's also a matter of trademark. Also, I heard that like the co-creators of Superman have been in like copyright battles for years now. That's a whole other story that I don't understand. So basically, okay, I'm just gonna stop it here because basically this video is just, I want to talk about how crazy DC Comics is and how crazy I am for trying to parse all of it, because it's not as simple as like, oh, Batman saw his parents die and became Batman. No, apparently it's also his parents were in a secret society, and also the secret society follows this dark god, and the dark god orchestrated his parents' murder. Anyway, so I'm just gonna close off this unscripted ramble with this. DC, hey DC, please. I know I just got here and I probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but please, if you ever decide to reboot the universe again, can you please make John Kent and Damian Wayne best friends again and not age them up artificially and just have a bunch of really cool adventures with them where you can follow them for a couple of years from children to young adults and understand how complicated it is that your parents are superheroes, and what does it mean for you as you are coming onto your own person. And I'm probably gonna write fan fiction, but also can you bring back Dick Grayson and Starfire and like the kid from the 80s that they never brought back? Also, don't forget that Connor Kenton's still here, and also don't forget that Tim Drakeston, he is still here. There's a lot of stuff that have been dropped since the 90s apparently, and I'm just now catching up to all of it. And my voice is going out, so I have to pause it here because I recently got into library science school, and during the fall semester like new students gathering party, I ended up talking my classmates' ears off for like a half hour on like the history of Batman and all of its various renditions. And then I was like, is this too much? Am I annoying you? And then my classmates were so nice and they're like, no, this was actually super interesting. And I'm like, all this knowledge in my brain has burdened me. So please leave a like if this unscripted rant has interested you at all. Most of my stuff is regards to fantasy books, particularly romantasy books, and analyzing them. The next Hermione book will be out in a few days, actually 3 days from now. And actually, as I'm recording this, of course, Superman is now on HBO Max as of yesterday, and also today is Batman Day. I didn't know that. So please leave a like. Please subscribe if you're interested. Maybe I'll talk about more DC Comics stuff in the future. And please leave a comment if there are any DC Comics runs or series or characters that you like. Anything you can recommend me, I'll follow it. Please include author, name, year, and ISBN number, because I will be taking these out of the library, with some exceptions, because of course I bought the Super Sons, I bought Amazing Spider-Man, and of course I ordered The Boy Wonder by Junie Bott. What do you mean? Of course I did that. Because Damian Wade is my feral assassin child, and he's only 3 apples tall. So thank you all so much for sticking with me for all of this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!